Hi, Nicholas here. Welcome to Lesson 22, Modes Part 2. So we're going to look at the emotional fill of modes. So there's an order of the modes that go from a darkest fill, right, and a more emotional, to a lighter, more happier fill. And we're going to put them in order, right? But we need to work out what is the order. Now we know that if all the modes is from the previous lesson, 21, we know that these are all the modes, say Ionian from C to C, Dorian from D to D, right? They all have a different sound. Phrygian, E to E, Lydian, F to F, Mixolydian, G to G, Aeolian, A to A, all in the key of C, and Locrian from B to B, all in the key of C, and that's the darkest. Now, the darkest to lightest isn't in this order, right? These are all the associated chords, all the diatonic chords that go with this key, right? The seventh diatonic seventh chords, right? They just slide up. Now, it's not that order. We need to find out what is the order. So this is going to get a little tricky this lesson, but I'll take it a bit slower to see if you understand. And let me know in the comments if it goes beyond your head or it's easy or whatever, but I'll do my best to go slow and explain it, right? So there's 7 modes in Western major scale, right, as we saw. Now, each of those modes, right, exist in 12 keys. So the Ionian exists in 12 keys, right, because there's Ionian C, there's Ionian in G, so we'll go around the circle of fifths, right? Ionian in D. Anyway, and so forth. And the same with the Dorian, right? So that's Ionian. And the Dorian in C, right? The Dorian in G. And so forth, right? So all the modes, each one of the 7 modes has 12 modes. There's 12 modes having the same formula that can start on any of the 12 notes. Right? So I hope that made some sense to you. But we're going to look into more detail at it. So what we're going to do is we're going to take each one of those modes, right, and we're going to have the root note, right, so on C, always on C. So normally if we're in the key of C, right, and we're playing the Ionian, well, that is the key of C, right? The Ionian starting on C is the key of C. But the Dorian, right, if it's in the key of C, the Dorian starts on D, right? Starts on D, right? Follow me so far? Okay, it starts on D. But we want the Dorian to start on C and having that same formula, right? So we'll go straight to the Dorian now. So the first thing we've got to do is, to work this out, we can write down the formula, right? So we can write it on a piece of paper. I've got it written up there, 1, 2, minus 3, 4, 5, 6, minus 7, and then I've slid it over to the C. But if we look here, we go root note, so that's a 2, it's a minus 3, 4, 5, 6, minus 7, and back to the root note with D. So we write that down. So we write it down and then we'll slide it over, and we want this to be the Dorian now. So we're going to go 1, 2, minus 3's up there now, right? 4, 5, 6, minus 7, and back to 1, right? So now that we've played the Dorians, C Dorian, we've got to work out what key is C Dorian in. What key does it exist in? Now I can just look at that now because I've written it down right on the screen, and I can see that there's 2 flat notes. So I can look at that, and hopefully you can too one day, and know that the key of B flat has got B flat and E flat in it, right? But if you don't know that, that's fine. What you do know, right? What you do know is that a Dorian is just a tone up from the root, okay? So if we're going to slide, if that's the Ionian and there's a Dorian in the key of C, and we want to find the key, we just slide down to C, and then we slide a tone down from here is B flat. So B flat's the key. Now if we play B flat, and you know your B flat major scale, you can see 1, 2. You can see 2 now. That's the Dorian. So that's the key of B flat, right? But if I play the Dorian, what I do is I start on C and I focus on those notes, flattening, and so all I've got to know really is the Ionian, and then I just play from C to C. So that's C Dorian. So you don't have to know the melodic interval series of the Dorian, you just have to know what key it's in. And if you know what key it's in, right, then you can play it, right? And that goes with all the modes. So if well, I won't go there because I might confuse you. But let's move on there. So Phrygian now, Phrygian normally, if we're in the key of C, the Phrygian's a third, right? 1, 2, 3. We play from E to E. That's the Phrygian. Now, if we wrote down that, we can see it's a 1, -2, -3, 4, 5, +5, -7, and a 1. Now, we can write that down and then slide it over, and we'll see where the black notes are on this. So we've got a 1, -2, -3, 4, 5, +5, -7, and back to the C. So the C now is the root note for the Phrygian, right? And there's the high, right? And there's a -7 in it, there's a +5, there's a -3 and -2. So what key's that? Well, two ways to find it. If you know the keys, then you can look at that and you'll go straight away, that's a key of A flat, because I can just look at that, the black notes. So I drew it on there. But if you haven't written it down and drawn it on there, or just noted which flats they are, one other way you can do it is, well, you know a Phrygian is 2 tones up, right, from the root. So if I'm here, I just go 2 tones down, 1, 2, and I'm on A flat. Now if I play A flat, to just double check, 1, 2, 3. That's the Phrygian. Now if I play from C, so I know the key of A flat, right? So if I focus on just the key of A flat, which is the Ionian, right? But I'm going to start on C, but play the key of A flat and end on C. I've just played the Phrygian in the C Phrygian. But I didn't know the formula for the C Phrygian. But what I did know was the key of what it comes from. And if you know the key where it comes from, you can play it. So that's how you can learn all your modes in all your keys, right? All you have to learn is all your key signatures in Ionian. And once you know that, you can visualize it and every note, right? And you can look and visualize what key it's in. You know all your modes. So it's not that hard once you know all your scales. So scales are very important. So that's Phrygian. So let's go on, keep on going. So Lydian, we look at Lydian, right? Now when I look at that, I can see that it has F sharp. And I know that F sharp is in the key of G, right? Because I know all my key signatures. So I know C Lydian's going to be G. It's going to be G. But how do we work that out, right? If you don't know that. All right, well, a Lydian, right? We do know that a Lydian, right, is 4 up, okay? It's 4 up is your Lydian, right? So what we're going to do is going to play from F to F. That's how the Lydian sounds, right? And we're going to write down the intervals. Root, 2, 3, 4. No, that's not 4. That's 4, right? That's -5. That's 5, 6, +7, and 1. So you can see up there 1, 2, -5, 5, 6, 7, and we've slid it down to 1, and we've got 1, 2, 3, -5, 5, 6, 7, 1. Right? Now, so we got C Lydian. So we know the Lydian is a 4 down, or 4 up from the root. So if we go 4 down, we're going to find the key, right? There's a 5th rule, there's a 4th, right? So there's a 5th rule, and a 4th is just a tone down or a tone up. That's a 4th. There's our 4th now. So I know it's in the key of G. But I knew from looking at that it was in the key of G. Now if I focus on the key of G, which is just F sharp, and go from C to C, and just where I'll get the F, I go F sharp. Whoop. That now is Lydian, C Lydian. So Once you know your key that it comes from, you don't have to remember the formula for Lydian. You don't have to remember it's a tone, 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 semitone, tone, tone, semitone. You don't have to remember that. You just got to remember the key, know your keys. All right, let's move on. Mixolydian is the fifth. So again, it's just the G now, okay? So we're going to play from G to G. That's the sound of the Mixolydian. It's got a different sound. We're going to write down the numbers. 1, 2, 3, right? 4, 5, 6, right? Minus 7. There's a minus 7 there. And back to the 1. So now we're going to move it over to the C and write that formula again. Root 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Sorry, that's 5. Do it again. Root note 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, minus 7 and back to 1. Now if I look at that and I go, okay, minus 7, I know straight away looking at that, I know the key of F has minus 7. Has got a B flat in it. So I'll know it's the key of F. However, we also know that we're a fifth up. Mixolydian is a 5 up. So if we go a 5 down, there's your key, F. Okay? So all I have to do is, if I'm going to play from C to C, right, it's all the white notes except B, it's B flat, right? So C Mixolydian is easy to play because I'm just focusing. I'm playing from C to C, but I'm just focusing on what I have to flatten, which is the B flat, right? Because I know all my key signatures. Right? So if you know the Ionian in all your keys, you automatically know all your modes. You just have to be able to visualize the key. That's why visualization is important. Be able to close your eyes and say all the keys. I don't think I've done a lesson on visualization for our keys. So I might do that as a lesson on how do we do that. But we close our eyes basically and we look at the key and we say each note as we go, right, for each key. And you'll remember, right? And you also got to know the order as you go around the circle of fifths. Right? So if you know all that, you know all your modes. All right, let's continue. This is a little bit of a, I know it's hard, to get it sunk in your head, but once you get it in your head, it's not that difficult. Well, it always is going to be difficult, I think, but at the end of the day, all this stuff is going to help you be a better composer, and you have other tools to use when you're playing, right? So you won't be thinking of this in your real-time playing. You think of all this stuff to help you work out what sounds good. And then we learn patterns, and then our hands will find these patterns as we're doing our improvisations. But all this stuff helps you in becoming a better improviser and composer. All right, Aeolian now. So we can stay in the key of C, play from A to A, and have a listen to the Aeolian. So that's the key of C, right? We can write down the formula, root note, 2 minus 3, 4, 5, plus 5, right? Minus 7, and then back to the root note. So if we shift it over, we go the root note, 2 minus 3, 4, 5, right? 4, 5 plus 5, right? Plus 5, minus 7 and back to the root. So we look at that, we look at those notes there. So we've got a flat 3 there, we've got flat. Again, I can look at that and go, I know it's in the key of E flat, right? I know it's in the key of E flat. But how do we work that out? Well, we know an Aeolian is 6 going up, right? So if we were to go do this and come down 6, well, we can come down 6 this way, okay? How do we come down 6? Well, we can do the fifth rule, right? Fifth rule, and it's a tone down. It's E flat, right? That's our 6th interval. So E flat is our key. Let's double check that. We'll start on E flat here. And this is the key of E flat, right? And we'll count to 6. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Hits on C. C, Aeolian in the key of E flat. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Now, I'll play it down here. If I play from C, if I want to play C Aeolian, right, I just have to know the key, right? And I know the key is E flat. And I know E flat has got E flat, A flat, and B flat. So all I do, really easy to play, right? Because I'm focusing on the key. I'm not focusing on what's the formula for Aeolian. What's the oh, it's a tone. What's the interval formula? It's a minus third. I'm not actually focusing on it's a minus on this formula. I know my Ionian, and all I'm doing is going from C to C. I know it's in the key. What key it's in? It's a key of E flat. And I know how to play E flat. I've learnt all my scales. So all I do is I'm going to play from C to C. I just got to focus on E flat. And I'm playing C Aeolian. It's that easy. It takes a bit. So it all comes from. So this is what most people do when they're talking about modes, because they don't understand the way to do it through the Akousunesis method, right? They panic, and they're thinking they have to learn all this stuff. And the same with chords. You're thinking we have to learn 1,000 chords. You just have to know a bit of theory and the tricks, right? It's not really a trick. It's just the shortcuts to know things, right? And once you know those, it starts to make more sense. It's all in my book. It's all in my book. My book now has got both Part A and B's all combined now for the same price. And I'm adding the exercises. There's a lot in that now. And it's developing all the time. I'm adding more stuff. So you purchase the book and you get free up revisions. And I'm doing revisions every month. So I've got one coming. So let's move on. Last one is the Locrian. Okay, so we know in the key of C are Locrians from B to B, right? We haven't even got to the emotional order yet. We're going to get there next. So we know our Locrians are from B to B, okay? So we'll write down again the formula. So we've got a 1 there. -2, right? We've got a -3. -2 and 3, -3, wow. Then we have a 4, right? Because the 5's up there. Then we got a +5, right? Then we got if that's a +5, that's a 5. That's a 6. If that's a 5, that's a +5, right? And that's a 6 because we know, remember the 5th rule? Remember when we had the 5th rule, we had B like that? So there's our 5th, there's our 6th, and there's our 4th, right? So it's got a 4 in it. It's got a -5. So we're playing here. That's a -5. That's a +5 because that's the 5, right? -5 +5. So it's got 1, -2, -3, 4, -5 +5, and a -7. So there's a lot of flat notes in this. Now, if I look at that, and it's a bit trickier because you've got a +5, but that's actually a 6 flat, right? So there's a 2 flat, 3 flat, 5 flat, 6 flat, and a 7 flat, right? I didn't write 6 flat because I want you to remember 5 plus, not flat, because that helps you find the interval in your real time playing. Theory wise, that's a flat 6 too. The +5 flat 6 is the same thing. Anyway, we've got 2 flat, 3 flat, 5 flat, 6 flat, and 7 flat, right? So we know D flat has all those flats, right? Are we in D flat? We can look and just see the notes. I'll show you the other way, but it's got 4. Oh yeah, that's the Ionian. Wait, has it got C? Yeah, it's C. So it is the key of D flat. But how else do we find it? Well, we know that the Dorian, right, is just a semitone up to C, right? So to find the key of the Dorian, in the key of C, right, it's just a semitone up. So if the Dorian starts on C, it's going to be D flat, right? And we know that too by looking there. So if I play Dorian now, right, all I have to do is focus on D flat, Oop. So I'd practice D flat, right, first, and then if I play Dorian, well, I'll just start on C. And just stop there on the C, don't go up there. That's Dorian. So you see how you just have to know the Ionian in all your keys. So I practice all your scales, you know your Ionian, then you know every mode in every key signature, all of them, and there's a lot of them, and you know them. And it's just a matter of practicing them. But I wouldn't do that religiously, like go through practice all your modes. I would just, if I'm in a key and I'm writing a song, then I'll explore the modes, right, in that key. And then I'll play the modes in that one key. We're going to go through all the keys. So as we write songs in the composition series, I've got the first composition out. By the way, if you look at that composition video, I was saying D minor in it. I was playing D minor, but it had E minor. But it doesn't matter because the actual theory was, the idea was still the same. But sometimes I do that. So forgive me if I misspeak sometimes. I check the videos sometimes, but I should be a bit more precise in checking the video and just but I liked how it was shot, that video, so I didn't want to touch it. So anyway, and it wasn't critical. But anyway, let's go on. Modes from darker to bright. Now we're gonna put them in order, right? By transposing the natural modes into the Ionian modal equivalence. So we call that a modal equivalent, that we found all the modal equivalents, right? We'll look more into modal equivalent, what that means, and we'll do much more about that. But so the pattern's easier to visualize, understanding what is happening. Let's look at the following table. All right. So have a look what I've done here now and how I've arranged them. I've arranged them from Locrian's up the top. So Locrian had all those flats. Remember, we had the B flat. There was the formula. So I've arranged them in the order of flats, right? So, well, I didn't do that. I mean, that's just basic theory. I mean, it's not my invention. It's just the way it is. Aeolian. So we've got 3 flats. Dorian's got the 2 flats. Mixolydian's got the 1 flat. Remember all these, right? Okay. We fix them to the key, to the C to find them, right? But these, Ionian, flat, all this, in other words, what a modal equivalent is, a Locrian, which was this, has a modal equivalence of Ionian with all those flats. So that's what we did. We brought it all down. So that's what modal equivalence is, right? So we investigated all that. Now that's a hard formula to remember, right? Ionian flat, right? But when they get less, we call that operations, or I call them operations. So we know an Ionian, what an Ionian is, right? So if we play the Ionian, right, starting from C, that's the Ionian. Now if we do all those operations, if we flatten the second, the third, flatten the fifth, flatten the sixth, flatten the seventh, we have that. Right? Sorry, back to C. So we're basically doing all those operations. Now that's a hard thing to remember, right? To remember all those operations. So when we'll be using, I call this a modal scale, right? And we'll be using modal scales to help us compose music. But anything over 3 operations gets hard to remember. So luckily this is just a Locrian. So we don't need to remember all that because we know what a Locrian is, right? So none of these we have to remember because they all have modal equivalents of the modes that we already know, right? So Phrygian, Ionian. So if we take an Ionian starting on C, it doesn't have to start, it can start anywhere. This is key independent here, this formula. We call that key independent, right? Because Ionian exists in 12 keys. But we're focusing on the key of C, right, to make it easier. right? Because the key of C has got all the white notes, and we just flattening goes to the black notes, so it makes it easy to understand, to visualize. So we're on the Ionian, right? If we're looking at Phrygian now. Flat second, flat 3, flat 6, flat 7, back to the C. And we know that was the key of A flat, right? So if I just focus on the key of A flat, and I just play from C to C, right? I can play the Phrygian, right? So now we look at, Ionian flat 2, flat 3, flat 6, flat 7 is the modal equivalence of the Phrygian. I hope that makes sense. So Aeolian, right, has a modal equivalence of Ionian -3, -6, -7. So we're doing some reasonably advanced thought in our brain, but this is basic modes. It's basic theory. But all right, let's have a look at a Dorian. Oh, we did Aeolian? All right, Aeolian. We did the Aeolian. So we'll start Ionian, flat 3, flat 6, flat 7. So it's got those flats. So I know that's the key of E flat. And there it is, E flat. So if I play the key of E flat, I know the C Aeolian. So I'm just focusing on the key of E flat, right? That's how I know every mode. Dorian has got Ionian flat. So we're getting close to Ionian, right? We're getting there closer. So Ionian flat 3 and flat 7. And I know that's the key of B flat because it has those two flats in it, right? So that's Dorian. Mixolydian has got 1 flat. So a Mixolydian has just got flat 7s. Right? So an Ionian is Ionian, right? Key of C. That Mixolydian was a key of F, the 1 flat, B flat, key of F. Our Lydian has got a sharp 4, right? Because that's the formula for a Lydian. Remember we said the Lydian was the key of G. So a Lydian sharp 4, so just play Ionian, and when we get to 4, we just sharpen it, which was that F sharp, which is in the key of G, right? So I just focus on the key of G and sharpen it. So now, have you noticed all the others? All the others were flattened, but that's sharpened. This is the brightest, and it goes down darker, 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 darker till we get to the darkest. So the order is from darkest to lightest. Ba-boom. So, Locrian's the darkest, and the Lydian is the brightest. Okay, so we'll go back again. They're the modes: Locrian, Phrygian, Aeolian, Dorian, Mixolydian, Lydian. That's the order. So, Lydian's the darkest on the bottom. Locrian's the darkest up the top, and we go lighter as we go down. Now have a look at the chords within the key. So these are progressions here. 7, 3, 6, 2. Now you can use these in songs, right? You probably know the 1, 5, 2, 5, 1, 2, 5, 1 progression. There's other progressions. You know, you can go, ooh, I shouldn't have clicked that because I'm still looking at it. So you can use these progressions. So let's try it out. Let's try it out. What's the darkest? Let's go from something dark and we'll go light, right? So we'll make up something. So I'll just be in the key of C, right? So from our composition, if you look at the composition videos, it'll show you how to just improvise, because improvisation and composition are very similar, right? So we're going to go, and then we're going to go the third now. A minor. A minor. D minor. Bit happier. went out of key. And then the final one was the F major 7. So we'll go dark. That's really dark now. So you can just muck around, right? And then what gives it, when you're writing a song, so you'll be, well, in the composition series, we're going to be looking at the different high intervals you can play to emphasize more of the feel of these. So we can be on we could start with an A minor. But if we want it sadder, even sadder, we could put a second in there, start on the high second. So understanding the emotional feel of the chords is one thing, right? The order. Also the intervals you're playing will also give you that extra feel, knowing which interval will put high to give you a certain feeling, you know? So that's it, I think. That's all we got. All right. I'll see you in the next lesson. The next lesson... I'm going to do, we might do a visualization of all the scales. I'm not sure if I've done that, so that might be something to do. I haven't thought of what's going to come next for the next lesson. I'll probably do a revision, maybe a revision of where you should be at if you've went through lesson 1, 2, 3. And lesson 4 is the key of C. You could have skipped all the other lessons for now, which they're just all the key signatures, and then continue on lesson 16 or whatever it was after the key signature lessons, and learn the other ones. And we always come back to the key signatures when we're learning a new composition. We're going to go into a new song. All right, so that's it. Well, thanks for watching, and I will see you on the next video. Bye.